Welcome back to part 2 of May the 30th fighting workout. Hopefully some idea or perspective helps, even if it is just confirmation that we share the same or similar ideas and perceptions. To be fair, and as a disclaimer, I am not recommending that you do any of these things I discuss in this video, and I am not responsible for whatever you do for whatever reason. Yeah, the things we discuss here can be extreme or involve some extreme element, and people's body may respond in different ways. So whatever you do, be wise and informed about it. In part 1, I started to discuss about the subjects and questions relating to how hard and light should I train, and things I do to condition my hands. So now I'm going to dive a bit deeper into the first subject, with an emphasis on some of my particular choices and experiences about training hard, extreme, or often. I want to make sure this discussion is informative, so I'll try not to pull any punches. I noticed 2 interesting overall approaches for myself. There was the objective of training to get better, to learn, improve, and increase skill and ability, things like that. But there was another approach which had very little to do with improvements. This approach trained and did relating activities simply because I love to do them. For me, I found the latter approach to involve a lot more tricky complications. The first approach of training to learn and get better could often be quite strategic, quite logical and structured, but the second approach could easily ignore or defy logic and reasoning. The second approach is where once upon a time I ran 3 times per day, in the morning and evening before and after work, and once during lunchtime at work. It had nothing to do with health or traditional training. I just loved to run. I loved everything about the activity, specifically speaking, not a leisurely jog, but good pace running. If I forgot my sneakers during work lunchtime, I usually would run in my steel-toe shoes then. I had to run. Did all that running affect my fighting training? Throughout the course of the year, there were times when it certainly did. And sometimes it was hard to predict if I was getting close to overload. Other times I could feel the burnout and dead legs coming on. The dead legs could be similar in effect to a mild hamstring pull. It could last a couple of weeks or so, and it would require me to alter my workout to favor recovery. A couple of times per year, I could get a similar issue with my ankles or knees. And that was extremely annoying, because knee sprain-like issues prevented me from completing and stiffening my kicks, and ankle pain prevented me from a tight ankle chamber. And each body part issue could increase the poor form of another body part, and poor form for itself as well. So, what are some details of my extreme training? On most days, I would do 1,000 punches and 1,000 kicks. These were for my Taekwondo strikes. Other days, I would mix and match it to involve blocks as well. When I was going to university, I would do some practice during my free time, free period, between scheduled classes. Of course, I would do during the morning and when I got home. But often, I'd be doing something even at 10 p.m. or later. Once upon a time, I would go downstairs to the laundry room of my apartment building at 10 p.m. or so. By the time it was 2008, I lightened up a bit. But even during 2006, at my very good tradie job in New York City, I would spend breaks, intervals where our crews had to wait around and couldn't work on a piece of equipment, and lunchtimes, which certainly was competing with me wanting to go running. If I was injured or had tough sessions at martial art class, or I was doing boxing stuff, I might do less than 1,000 punches and kicks. So how many times did I work out or do some kind of training per day? Well, it depends on what time of my life. I started Taekwondo training around 1992. I started boxing at Starrett City Boxing Gym around 1995-96. I also ran, but I didn't become obsessed like with running until around 2003-2004, sometime not too far removed from our New York City's 9/11 tragedy. During my extreme levels, peak cycles, I was training 3 times per day, and that was usually at least every other day, but there was always back-to-back days, and the off days were still at least 1 training session or at least something. I wasn't at this cycle my whole life, but it's a good estimation of how much I was doing during peak cycles. The punches and kicks in those workouts counted toward the 1,000 each quota. And the training wasn't always a clever mix of different things and target improvements, so it wasn't like I was doing kicks in one session and punching in another. My Taekwondo style overall belongs to kwon, the old school brutal form, before any of the sine wave rising and lowering form movements were implemented. I'm very loving and cool with most martial arts, and I truly believe there's pros and cons to experience with anything. But I'd sincerely say the Chungdo Kwon set of forms leading to black belt were tougher than what I experienced for the WTF set of forms. So each workout could involve, at least, either before or after my striking and blocking practice, I would practice all of my forms. Sometimes I would do forms before and after, and that could also mix in boxing depending on what years we're talking about. It's a bit hard to remember some things, but I don't think my workouts like that were for a specific or set interval of time. I'm pretty sure they all start at least being an hour long. An hour and a half was very normal for a hard Taekwondo practice, and extending it to 2 hours was fairly common too, from what I can remember. But I was usually aware of what sessions needed to be shorter because of other responsibilities and which ones I could train longer. Many workouts involved striking at the air, no target to impact. Other workouts involved all kinds of surfaces. For sure, a heavy bag was a great intermediate target to impact, very forgiving. And I say this because my other targets were tree trunks, brick walls, and large stones and natural rock surfaces. Did this cause injuries? Without a doubt. I mangled my back usually about 3 times per year. Each time my back gave out, it would usually be about 3 days of needing to lay down, lay around, bedridden, etc. And then another couple of days of timid and gingerly walking and recovering. Did I do conventional body workouts? Yes, I did. I mixed in versions of push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, legs, some chest stuff, dips, all kinds of stomach and back, core, whatever. But rarely did the conventional workouts involve weights. At the very least, I was never into conventionally using dumbbells and barbells, or even most machines. I did train with weights on my legs while running, or wearing a weighted backpack, and I did train with weights on my hands or wrists, or weighted gloves. When it comes to weights in the hand while striking, I was fortunate to hear a lot of respectable people's experiences, and I knew it was a very risky or unforgiving method. They had the injury history, one wrong twist or angle, or just being fatigued and they tore their whole arm up, bicep off the bone, rotator cuff stuff. So I was pretty wise and cautious about that. Well, that's about it for part 2. See you in the next part.